it was surreal. I didn't think it was real. I mean, it's just like, you've been healthy your whole life, you've been an athlete, you've been all this stuff. You've been able to deal with stress. 2 months prior to going to the hospital, I was walking around East Africa in like desolate areas where there was no food and no water. And I mean, anything could happen there. And even to this day, I've never had a heart attack or a stroke or anything. But I was able to finally wrap my mind around it. Like, this is not surreal, this is real. And I got to take this serious, and I've got to jump on it. Just like I used to for sports or music or whatever. I got to jump on this. I've got to get in line, figure this program out, figure this process out, listen to the doctors, and accept where I'm at, and get better to the best of my ability.
If I could describe Derek in one word, it would be a mentor.
Passionate.
Strong.
I'd say supportive.
Persistent.
Say compassionate or passionate.
Is generous, especially with his time.
He's a soldier.
Oh, wow, fortitude.
Leader. The strongest, like literally the strongest person I've ever met. What he went through.
The word that I would use to describe Derek is faithful.
I'd have to say he's a faithful servant.
Consistent.
Selfless. He's very selfless.
Really resilient. He, no matter what kind of gets thrown his way, he kind of figures out a way to bounce back up.
I would say miracle. That's the description. He's a miracle.
Well, we always knew that we would be doing something in the ministry. If it's going to go be on the mission field, go like live in Africa somewhere, do some type of ministry. But we didn't want to be pastors because of what we've seen growing up. We're like the first ones there, the last ones to leave. You know, you carry the burdens of everybody in your congregation.
I'm not slick, I'm not polished. I just try and be real. I'm quick to admit, even to our congregation or anybody else, that I didn't even want to be a pastor. So, but sometimes that's the best way to go into something that you don't have huge aspirations.
Watching him as we dated through all of our years of being married, every place that we go to, I see him really gravitate to people who are just hungry, who want to be mentored, who want to be led, encouraged in their walk of faith. He really he gravitates to that.
You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high.
In times where people are changing and, 1 month this way and 1 month, something different. He's a good example of what a man should be and what a father should be, a husband. And so, people are looking for someone that they can, count on to be that and be a good example.
Everybody needs. I know the world doesn't say this much anymore, but when I say the world, I mean our culture. Everybody needs reassurance from the people that really matter in their lives. And they need support, and they need them to know that they care. And words are important. One of the things I didn't realize when I first got sick was how many people have heart issues. I didn't realize it was that. And so for me, it was a stigma. And even in the last 4 or 5 days before I ended up going to the hospital, finally on Christmas Day, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to acknowledge that. I didn't want to acknowledge that was a possibility in my life.
We just both kind of felt like we had a cold that week, like just both a little under the weather. And so when we got up to do stockings on Christmas morning, like we always do right before we head out to church for a Christmas morning service, and we do stockings, and then he comes and pulls me back actually into this room and says, I think I have to go to the ER. And I was like, is this a joke? Like, I was just there yesterday, and Derek is never sick.
I got in the car with my son, and all I kept hearing was 2 words: game changer, game changer, game changer. Like, this is gonna change and alter your life completely. And I was just like, ah. And when they started telling me about bypass surgery and LVAD and all these things, I was like, I don't want any part of this. I don't want any part of this. I don't, give me the shot, give me the pills, whatever.
And then I come home because he said that they're just gonna check a couple things, and I was gonna come back. But then my mom's like, "Yeah, they're gonna check him in. It's serious." And I was like, that was like a shot to the chest. I was like, it was hard. It's hard just to think about that.
And I just, deep in my heart, I knew that I wasn't going home for a while. I just knew it. I was almost like being prepared for it. Hey, hunker down, you're gonna be here for a while. And I said that even to my oldest daughter when she came in. I'm like, you need to really support mom right now and stand behind her and everything, because I might be here for a while. She's like, come on, Dad. I said, no, I might be here for a while. I just have a feeling.
He presented actually to an outside hospital. They did an ultrasound to look at his heart to see how well it's functioning. And the heart was functioning at about 10% of what a normal heart would function at. Given those constellation of symptoms, they referred him to our hospital because we specialized on high-end heart issues.
So when Mr. Forseth arrived and we met him on the floor here in the hospital, he was in pretty bad shape. His heart function had deteriorated considerably. He was requiring support for the function of his heart. And we had just received a coronary angiogram which showed that he had significant, severe 3-vessel coronary disease.
So when I got to the hospital, I could tell a lot, I think, when I lay my eyes on somebody. And he avoided my eyes. He never did look in my eyes. And I thought, oh boy, he's gotten some news that isn't good.
We did not know the storm that was coming, and we really didn't. And it got really bad, and it got really bad really fast.
They came and told us that he would have to have a single bypass to get the blood flow working, and hopefully that would kind of wake up his heart, like get fresh blood pumping and get it working. So that was their hope. But in the meantime, they came in with this big binder that told us all about this LVAD machine, that if the bypass doesn't work, this LVAD machine would be that, because they wouldn't wake Derek up. Like, we want to tell you now, and you have to approve it now that this would be put into your heart, and it would be pumping the blood for you while your heart heals.
The heart is a muscle, and the muscle pumps. And when the muscle creates a demand, it's expecting a supply of blood. When you have a demand and not enough supply through the coronary arteries, that's when you have the problem of heart failure, angina, heart attack, whichever way it classifies as. And then when we get the imaging that we need, which is the angiogram, that shows us what's the roadmap. In him, all three roads, which are the main roads, the main tributaries of blood flow, were blocked. 80 to 90% blocked. Our role as surgeons is to reestablish the supply-demand. Obtain auxiliary blood flow, attach it to the heart on the coronary arteries. So when the heart has a demand, we now have a plethora of supply.
So on the 9th, they did the bypass. Everything worked beautifully, but he needed a triple bypass, not just a single bypass. So, okay, great, you opened the floodgates. Now his blood can be pumping, and he'd give him a day. Okay, nope, it's not getting better, another day. So he gave him a few days. So on the 14th, he came back to me and said, all right, Krista, it's not working, and I think we need to do the LVAD. And I was like, oh man, do we really need to do this? But we agreed that whatever he says, we're gonna do.
By the 4th day, he wasn't flying. The heart was struggling. It had accepted the bypasses, but the heart muscle, the basis of it, was not strong enough to take off on its own. And so we had to make the decision then. We transitioned from this first level of support, the balloon pump, onto the highest level of support, which is the LVAD.
But then he started getting loopy. He started getting getting a fever, not making sense when he was talking. Part of it was like, is he just waking up? Does he still have some of the medications? But then no, they realized that he had an infection.
But now we have a gentleman who's been in the hospital for 2 weeks. This is his second time having the incision in the chest. And unfortunately, he had a wound infection, and a wound infection that was deep. It got into the bone, and that required multiple strategies to be able to sterilize the field.
Like, I literally just came down, kissed him, and he went back into surgery.
There was one point, I think Krista called, and she said, we need to gather the family. And that's when the E. coli was kind of running pretty rampant, and he was having washouts every 3 days or something like that. His chest had been open for quite some time, and he'd been on the ventilator for close to 18 days or so at that point, for maybe the second or third time. I can't remember. But I remember packing a dress for his funeral. Yeah.
They kept it open for weeks and kept him sedated for weeks, just trying to get the E. coli under control. And it just kept getting worse, and then getting a little bit better. And it was that was the scariest time, I think. Just not the surgery for bypass or LVAD. It was like when Dr. Yusuf said, I gotta get this under control, and right now it's not under control. And where he had to go back and call his colleagues and try to find out what they can do to manage it. So that was the scariest time.
Well, so I'm a fighter. My initial conversations with God were like, hey, take care of this. Get rid of this. That would be a good story. And I just kept getting this premonition, call it, where this is going to take a while, but it's going to end up good. And there were moments where I doubted that. There were moments where I doubted that. But it wasn't too long after that where I turned the corner. And it was almost like I felt like when I looked back on it, I almost felt like that's something you had to do.
Dr. Youssef would come and share every single detail after every single washout. But he would come in and sit down and say, okay, this is what I did. This is where I think the infection is. And this is what I'm gonna do. And he would explain it in such a way that, really gave, especially my kids, the opportunity to ask questions like, well, what are you gonna do next? What's the next plan? The fact that he was gonna do every single thing within his power to fix him. He was never giving up. So I appreciate that the most.
I mean, we felt like he was, in a way, God's hands extended to us. I will never take away that he's the great physician, but he really gifted us with some very talented medical people.
So when you're in the hospital that long, they kind of become your people, right? And they're your cheerleaders too.
To have the goals, to be given the hope by the medical staff, by my surgeon, Dr. Youssef, by my cardiologist, Dr. Mignone, to be given those goals and given hope that I could recover, did wonders for me.
And every day we'd meet with the family. Their faith in him, their faith in us, became a combination that is really what pushed us through. His heart needed recovery, we set him up for that. The wound infection needed recovery, we set him up for that. His physical body needed recovery, and through the great physical therapy team that we have and the rest of the crew upstairs and the 4 East nursing and the ICU nurses and everyone mobilized him to get him back on his feet.
How you feeling?
So all those aspects of recovery are what we say.
Yeah, Craig Schramm, the physical therapist, was a real bright spot for me. It's like I became the congregant and he became the pastor. I was only mad at him once because he said he's not ready to go home, and I had been given a date. But he was right. I had to be able to go up several steps before I could go home. And he's like, we're gonna work hard all weekend. I'm gonna spend extra time with you until you can do 4 steps. And then I did it, and Monday I got to go home.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Woo! Today is day 104, and today I'm bringing my husband home.
Here we go. Woo-hoo! Here comes Daddy! Dad! Daddy!
It's been said many different ways. I heard it again recently on television. I mentioned it yesterday in the service, but you don't wait for everything to not be so hard to decide to be happy. The hard things that come your way, let them shape you. Let them shape you, let them form you. Let them strengthen you. Let them bring a new perspective. Because that's really what happened to me. I would say it over and over again. I wish I could go back to the physical me prior to this, but having gone through what I've gone through, I would never go back to the old me as far as emotions and attitude and perspective. I'm so grateful that I went through what I went through for that reason. It's a game changer. Went through the storm, man. Went through the storm and I survived. And I'm happy. I got a lot to live for.